Verse 2 continues, and glean heads of grain after him in whose sight I may find favor. The word glean that we use here in English comes from a French word, which is glaner. And all that simply means is to gather ears of corn or some other grain. Gleaning from a biblical perspective is something that was specifically authorized under the law of Moses. It's found in several passages, including this one from Deuteronomy chapter 24, which explains why gleaning is mandated. Here's what it says. When you reap your harvest in your field and forget a sheaf in the field, you shall not go back to get it. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. When you beat your olive trees, you shall not go over the boughs again. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. When you gather the grapes of your vineyard, you shall not glean it afterward. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. And you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt. Therefore I command you to do this thing. This allowance was given as a means of caring for, as it says, the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. All three of these applied to Ruth in some sense. She was a stranger, which means a foreigner. She was by oath united to Naomi, whose husband was dead, and therefore she is in essence fatherless, and her own husband has died, and thus she is a widow. In every respect, she is the person to whom God had directed this mandate of the law, showing that his care was not just directed to the wealthy people or just to the people of Israel, but to all people who would unite themselves to him in the land that he gave to them. And so Ruth is asked to follow this ancient custom, which was especially directed to one in her state. And she says, after him in whose sight I may find favor. I'm not really keen on the way the New King James Version translates this. The word favor is literally grace, and yet they continuously change it from the old King James Version grace to favor throughout the Old Testament. I don't like that they do that. This phrase is in a very particular structure in the Hebrew. Her thought is as if there is only one reaper who is the owner. In other words, all of the laborers who are actually doing the reaping are merely hired hands. And if you can see the connection, it is pointing to Christ. Even though his words in John 10 are speaking of sheep, the concept remains true for any hired help. Here's what he says there in John 10. I am the good shepherd, and I know my sheep, and am known by my own. As the Father knows me, even so I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold. Them I must also bring, and they will hear my voice, and there will be one flock and one shepherd. There is one in charge of the grain, and all others are his stewards. It is from him alone that grace is to be found. Little hints such as these should help us to reflect on the pictures of this book, this wonderful book entitled Ruth, which are shouting out for us to see. Verse 2 continues.